We are not alone. Last night, well, technically tonight, but it's now past 12 a.m., my wife and I had an experience that we genuinely can't explain, and I'm curious if anyone has seen something similar. About a month ago, I was scrolling Twitter and saw a clip a woman on a podcast saying that if you go outside at night with an open mind and simply ask to see them, strange lights or orbs may appear. I thought it sounded interesting, but honestly wrote it off as very unlikely. Fast forward to last night. Around 10 p.m. in North Carolina, I decided to try it just out of curiosity. After about 30 seconds of looking at the sky, I noticed what looked like stars beginning to move. At first, I assumed my eyes were playing tricks on me because I had been staring for a while. But then one became two, then three. They weren't twinkling like stars and they weren't blinking like airplanes. They looked like steady white points of light. What really caught my attention was how they moved. The best comparison I can make is that they moved like insects or almost like fish, but way up in the sky and constantly illuminated. They drifted smoothly back and forth, changed direction, and seemed to move around one another. Occasionally another light would appear, fly through the area, and then continue on. They didn't move like airplanes or satellites in a straight line. They looked almost alive. I thought maybe I was imagining it, so I immediately called my wife outside. She is the biggest skeptic I know when it comes to UFOs or anything paranormal. I didn't tell her what to expect. I just asked her to watch and then said out loud, "I wish to see you." Within a short time, the same lights appeared again. She watched them moving the same way I had. At first, she wondered if they were airplanes. But after watching for a bit, she said they couldn't be because there were no blinking navigation lights. They were far too high to appear that way, and their movements didn't resemble normal aircraft. Not even drones moved like this. She was completely dumbfounded. After the lights disappeared, an actual airplane flew overhead with the familiar blinking red and white lights, and the difference was obvious. It was much lower than the lights we saw also. Another thing that stood out was that these lights didn't fly off over the horizon like a plane does. They simply seemed to fade or vanish where they were. Afterward, I went inside, called my brother-in-law and a friend, because I was honestly pretty shaken up, grabbed my phone, hoping to record it, and went back outside. I tried asking again, but nothing appeared. Even after putting my phone away and trying a second time, they never came back. I'm not claiming this was aliens, but I know now without a doubt, we are not alone. I know I probably sound crazy, but all that matters to me is that we know what we saw. I'm just looking to find out if anyone else has experienced something similar, especially the firefly-like movement or star-like lights after asking aloud to see them. Has anyone here witnessed anything like this or found a conventional explanation that fits? My husband told me we never had a daughter. The terrifying part is that I almost believed him. I need you to understand something before I start. I am a primary school teacher. I am not dramatic. I do not catastrophize. I correct children's spelling and pack lunches, and know every parent's name and their dog's name, and which kid needs an extra 5 minutes. I am the most grounded person I know. I am telling you this because what I'm about to write sounds like the confession of someone who isn't. Her name is Ellie. She is 18 months old. She has her father's jaw and my eyes, and a way of destroying every block tower she builds immediately after completing it. Like she's testing a theory about impermanence. She says 4 words. She smells like warm bread after a bath. When I sing a specific song, 3 lines, a melody I made up in the dark, during a 4 a.m. feed, she stops whatever she's doing and turns toward the sound. I know she's real. I know she's real because I found her shoe behind the radiator. Let me go back. Leo and I met in a bookshop. He took a book off the shelf before I could reach it and held it out to me with a half-apologetic smile. Force of habit? Sorry. He'd read it 3 times. He didn't follow me when I walked away. That was the first thing I noticed about him. Most men would have. Leo didn't chase. He positioned. He was interesting and he let me decide. I decided. He was the managing director of M&A at an investment bank. He was charming in a way that made you feel specifically chosen rather than generally approved of. He remembered everything, the exact words of a conversation from 6 months prior. The name of a student I'd mentioned once in passing. You were listening. And he'd say, I always listen. I thought that was love. I know now what it actually was. He wasn't storing memories. He was building a key. We married 3 years after the bookshop. Ellie came 18 months later. We had a house with a garden and neighbors we liked, Sarah and David Henderson. Warm people. The kind who bring food when you're ill, and a life that looked, from every angle I could find, like the thing you spend your 20s hoping for. And then slowly, almost imperceptibly, it started. The first thing was small. We were at dinner, the 3 of us, normal Tuesday, and mid-sentence Leo just stopped. Not paused to think, stopped. Eyes open, completely present, but displaying nothing. Like a screen that's on, but not running anything. Leo? Nothing, Leo. He blinked. Continued the sentence from exactly where he left off. Same tone, same pace, as if no time had passed. You just stopped, what? Mid-sentence, you just stopped and stared at me. Lisa, I didn't stop. I was talking. I let it go. I was tired. Ellie wasn't sleeping through yet, and I was running on 4 hours most nights. I told myself it was the kind of thing tired people imagine. The next week, the coffee mug in the wrong place. A conversation I remembered differently from him. Furniture shifted by a few inches, not moved exactly, just off, like a photograph hung slightly wrong. I'd come home once to find him sitting in the living room with the TV off, watching my reflection in the dark screen. He didn't know I'd seen. Each thing, small, each thing, deniable, each thing, mine to explain away. I started explaining a lot of things away. I confronted him eventually, calmly. I sat down with him after Ellie was in bed and I laid out my examples carefully, the way I'd worked up to it for 2 weeks. He listened all the way through. When I finished, he paused. Then, how long have you been feeling this way? Not answering me, turning it. He told me I hadn't been sleeping properly, that sleep deprivation causes memory distortion, that I'd been under stress since going back to work. He touched my face with the specific touch I loved. Come back to bed. I went. 3 days later, he told me he'd spoken to a psychiatrist, just to get some context. He suggested we come in together, or you could go alone. Whatever feels right. I just want you to feel better. Dr. Reeves was in his 50s, patient, professional. His office was designed to feel safe. I talked. He listened. He took notes. His notepad was open when I sat down. 2 words already written. Husband concerned. I didn't register it properly at the time. I do now. He started bringing me tea before bed. I don't know exactly when the medication changed. Dr. Reeves had prescribed something mild, something to help with sleep and anxiety. Leo started making the tea around the same time. It seemed caring. It seemed like exactly the sort of thing he would do. The nightmare started on the 3rd night. Ellie's room, Leo standing over her crib. He turns, the knife in his hand, his face completely calm. He picks her up. I try to scream and nothing comes out. I woke, gasping, Leo beside me, peaceful asleep. I went to Ellie's room and stood in the doorway until my breathing slowed. She was fine. I told myself it was the new medication. I didn't tell Leo. The nightmares escalated. 3 nights running, each longer, more specific. The third time I woke up screaming, and Leo was already holding me, already there before I fully surfaced. His arms around me, his face against my hair, his eyes open in the dark, looking at nothing. I was too frightened to think about how he was always already awake. I lost a Friday night. This is the part that's hardest to write because I still don't have full access to it. I remember a bath, a glass of wine Leo had poured, closing my eyes. And then I woke up in bed on Saturday morning with damp hair and my pajamas on, and no memory of getting out of the water. I went downstairs. The living room stopped me in the doorway. Same room, same dimensions, same bones. But the curtains were different. Photos on the walls showing things I didn't remember, a Venice trip I had no memory of, occasions I couldn't place, a version of our life I didn't recognize. Like someone had taken everything familiar and shifted it 3 degrees. Leo managed it with complete warmth. He named the Venice anniversary. He reminded me of the restaurant, the dress I'd worn, the thing I'd said on the bridge. And the horrible part, the part I can't fully forgive myself for, is that I almost remembered. I let him hold me. Over my shoulder, his face was nothing. The expression of a man waiting. I think I need to see someone. I've been thinking the same thing. He hit me on a Thursday. Normal Thursday, good dinner. Half a bottle of wine, Ellie in bed. I was telling him something funny from school. I was telling it well. He was laughing at the right moments, and I turned to put a plate in the rack. He hit me so hard I went into the counter edge first. I didn't understand what had happened. Not pain yet. Just the world had stopped making grammatical sense. I turned toward him, and the second one put me on the floor. He crouched beside me, not enraged, not out of control, with the same energy he uses for everything measured, deliberate, focused. He hit me the way he closes a deal, like finishing a task. His face the whole time, neutral, present, completely silent. No grunt of effort, no change in breathing. I stopped trying to get up after the second time. Something animal understood that movement was making it worse. I went still, and I looked at Ellie's plastic cup by the fridge, and I focused on it completely, while the room went strange around the edges. Then he stopped. Not because I did anything, just done. He stood up, straightened, looked at me on the floor with that same neutral assessment. And then he stepped over me, not past me, over me, and went upstairs. I got up. I turned off the tap he'd left running. I put cling film over the leftovers and put them in the fridge. I wiped down the counter and washed the plates and dried them and put them away. I cleaned the kitchen because my brain needed something to do that made sense. If I could just make the kitchen normal. Maybe the last 10 minutes hadn't happened the way I thought they did. I got into bed beside him. I lay in the dark, not knowing if he was asleep. I didn't know which would be worse. I woke up on Sunday. 2 days gone. My body felt wrong in a way that wasn't quite pain. More like a wrongness that had been distributed evenly through everything. Leo was sitting up beside me reading. Coffee on the bedside table. Like every Sunday morning of our marriage. He told me I'd had an episode the worst yet. That he'd come downstairs and I hadn't recognized him. That I'd been aggressive. That I'd hurt myself against the counter. That he and Dr. Reeves had gotten me upstairs between them. I took your memory of being beaten, kept the kitchen, the floor, the pain, replaced the cause. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I just knew that I looked at my arms and there was nothing, no marks. Completely clean, and I couldn't find Thursday. And Leo's hand came over mine on the breakfast table, and I asked him, "Did you hit me?" He looked at me with something that looked like heartbreak. "Is that what you think happened?" "I don't know what I think. I know." A pause. "I know you don't." Said so gently. I looked at his hand over mine. The specific hand I had held for 7 years. I didn't pull away, because pulling away would have meant deciding, and I didn't have enough ground under my feet to decide anything. He took Ellie on a Wednesday night. I know that's when, because the shoe was still by the crib on Tuesday. I know because I had kissed her goodnight and sung the song, and she had turned toward my voice and gone to sleep with her arms out the way she always did. He brought me tea before bed. I drank it. I followed him upstairs. I woke up and reached toward the crib, and my hand closed on air. I went to her room. A room. Bare. Clean. Wrong. I opened the wardrobe. Empty. I got on my knees and opened the toy drawer. Empty. I checked behind the curtains and under the changing table and inside the wardrobe again, as if the second time would produce different results. Leo appeared in the doorway, sleep-rumpled, genuinely confused. Where is she? Who? Where is Ellie? Where is my daughter? His face. The specific tragedy of his face. We never had a child. I went through every room. Ellie had been removed from every surface of my life, every photograph, every toy, every piece of clothing. 7 words, and she was gone from the world as thoroughly as if she had never been in it. I came back to Leo standing in the hallway, watching me search, and I stopped in the middle of the hall and went quiet. Not breakdown, not rage, just silence, where a person used to be. Leo held me on the floor, his arms around me, his voice low and steady, the voice I had loved for 7 years. I'm here. I'm right here. I sat inside his arms, inside his house, inside the reality he had built around me, completely alone. I found the photograph 3 days later. Reaching into the back of the closet, my hand found a corner of something caught behind the winter coats. I pulled it out. 3 people. Me, Leo, Ellie. She is real. She was here. She is real. I heard his car in the driveway. I tucked it inside my waistband, stood up, and went to start dinner. That night he brought me my pill. I looked at it in my palm. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. Careful, small, slightly behind my own eyes. But underneath that, still there. Still there. I put the pill in my pocket, got into bed. Leo beside me, reading. Did you take it? A beat? Yes. I lay in the dark with the pill in my fist, eyes open, clearer than I had been in months. Some hours later, I felt a tap on my shoulder, gentle, deliberate. I didn't move, didn't change my breathing. I heard a drawer. The sound of something lifted, considered, replaced. Leo getting back into bed. I found out later what he had been holding. I don't need to write it here. You can work it out. In the morning, I made tea while he showered. I packed only what fit in one bag. I moved through the house with the deliberateness of someone who's been planning something in their head for days without admitting it. I went to the Hendersons. I was going to ask Sarah to call the police. I had the photograph. I had the shoe I'd found behind the radiator. I was going to show her the room at the back of the closet, the small room with toys arranged on a shelf, and children's books stacked neatly, and a name written carefully on the wall in soft letters. Ellie. Sarah opened the door with her warm, worried face. Please, I need you to call the police. I have proof. There's a room in my house. She stepped aside to let me in, and heard it. From somewhere deeper in the house, the small sound a baby makes when they stir without fully waking. My body knew before my mind did. My eyes went past Sarah's shoulder down the hallway, and there, in the dim light, a cradle. She had been here. Every night I lay in that house, being taken apart, my daughter was a wall away. Every morning I woke up beside the man who told me she didn't exist. She was sleeping in that cradle, 20 feet from our front door. Sarah moved between me and the corridor, gentle, instinctive. She already had her phone in her hand. He's worried about you? We all are. I looked past her. Ellie was awake now. A tiny arm appeared above the cradle's edge, reaching. The reaching of a baby who senses their mother is near. My hand came up without my choosing it. Fingers spread, reaching back across 20 feet of hallway and everything he'd put between us. Sarah shifted slightly, blocking more of the corridor. Still talking. Still completely certain she was doing the right thing. I looked at my daughter for a long time. Then I turned, not heroically. My body just moved. Because staying was no longer something I could physically do. Leo was standing at the end of our driveway when I got outside, not blocking me, not threatening, just standing there, hands at his sides, with that quality he has of making you feel like the only thing in his field of vision. He didn't need to do anything, he just stood there. And I stopped. I walked toward him slowly, stopped a few feet away, the room. That was all I said, not a question, just the room. He looked at me and did something more disturbing than dropping the mask. He looked almost sad. One final attempt, even here, even now. Lisa, come inside. You're not well. I didn't argue. I just looked at him with the clearest eyes I'd had in months. I know what you did. Something changed in his face. The warmth switched off like a light. What was underneath wasn't monstrous. That would have been easier. It was just empty. The faintest trace of something that wasn't quite a smile. A man who finds a minor development mildly interesting. So you found out. Not surprised, not angry. I asked him the only question that mattered. My voice barely above a whisper. Why? He looked at me the way he had looked at me 1,000 times across 7 years. That specific look I used to think was love. I understood in that moment what it had always been. Because I can. Not theatrical, not cruel. 3 words said quietly and completely, like the simplest and most obvious answer to the simplest and most obvious question, like he genuinely couldn't understand why I needed to ask. I'm posting this because I need someone to believe me. I have a psychiatric record that says I'm delusional. I have a husband that everyone likes. I have neighbors who will tell you, sincerely and with genuine concern, that Leo did everything he could. I have a doctor who wrote, husband concerned, in his notepad before I said a single word. What I have: 1 photograph, 1 small shoe, and myself, just barely, but enough. I don't know where I am right now. I'm not going to say. I don't know what happens next with Ellie. That part is too raw and too complicated, and I can't write it yet. I know I'm going to get her back. I know that with the same certainty, I know she's real. If anyone reading this recognizes what I've described, the small corrections in public, the warmth everyone else sees, the way your own memory starts to feel like enemy territory, please, trust the thing underneath. The part that's still there, it's still there. The most dangerous person in your life is the one who learned exactly how you love. The song has 3 lines. It's not much of a melody. I made it up at 4 a.m. in a dark room over a crib, half asleep, not thinking about anything except a small person who needed to hear my voice. She turns toward it. She always turns toward it. That is not something you can gaslight out of a child. She knows her mother. She knows